The afternoon sun poured through the large windows of the Silver Fork Diner, coating every surface in warm, amber light. The smell of grilled butter and fresh coffee filled the air as silverware clinked gently across white porcelain. Laughter drifted from one end of the room, the easy, careless kind that belongs to people who've never had to count their blessings by the dollar. At the far corner table sat Arthur Bennett, a man whose silence spoke louder than the noise around him. His jacket, once army green, now faded to gray, hung loose on his frail shoulders. The deep lines around his eyes weren't just from age, but from memories that never truly left the battlefield. His trembling hand lifted a cracked water glass, the light glinting off the dull surface of his old military watch, the only possession that still seemed to have value. When Eli, the young waiter, approached, his voice carried the warmth of someone who still believed the world could be kind. "Can I get you something, sir?" he asked. Arthur hesitated, glancing at the plates steaming around him. Juicy steaks, golden fries, slices of pie that seemed to melt in the air. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "Do you happen to have any leftovers? Anything the kitchen doesn't need?" The words fell heavy, like stones in water. Conversations nearby slowed. A few heads turned at the booth near the center of the room. Harrison Cole, the owner of the diner, polished suit, slick back hair, confidence dripping from every gesture, looked up. His guests, a group of investors in designer watches, chuckled under their breath. Harrison smirked, swirling his glass of wine as he said loud enough for the room to hear, "Leftovers? This isn't a soup kitchen, old man." A few nervous laughs followed. Eli froze, his face flushing with shame and anger. He wanted to speak, but his throat tightened. Arthur lowered his gaze, nodding once. "Of course. Sorry to trouble you." But Eli couldn't stand it. He turned toward the counter, grabbed a plate of freshly cooked roast, and whispered to the chef, "It's for him. Take it off my pay if you have to." Then, with trembling hands, he placed the warm meal before Arthur. The old man blinked, stunned. The smell of real food, rich gravy, fresh bread, filled his senses. He looked up at Eli, eyes glistening. "Son, I don't deserve." Before he could finish, a sharp voice cut through the diner. "Eli." Harrison's chair screeched against the floor as he stood. The entire room went silent. He stormed toward the corner, his face red with rage. "Did I just see you serve my food to a beggar? You want to play hero? Go ahead, but not in my restaurant." Eli's hands shook, but he didn't step back. "He's a veteran, sir," he said quietly. "He's earned more than any of us." The owner laughed coldly. "A veteran? You think wearing an old jacket makes you special? I run a business, not a charity." The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. Arthur slowly stood, his frail frame trembling, not from fear, but something deeper. "That's enough," he said, voice steady. "Don't talk to him that way." Harrison turned sharply. "And who are you to tell me?" Then he stopped mid-sentence. His eyes locked on Arthur's jacket, something slightly visible beneath the folds of worn fabric. The room froze. The sound of sizzling pans from the kitchen faded into silence. Arthur reached inside his coat, his fingers brushing against something hard, metallic, and old. The faint click of the latch echoed like a gunshot in the quiet. He pulled out a small, faded military metal case, the kind given only to those who'd stood where others had fallen. As he opened it, Harrison's expression twisted from arrogance to confusion, then to shock. Whatever was inside that case wasn't just a metal. It was something that changed everything. For a moment, the diner was utterly still. The hum of conversation, the clatter of silverware, even the sizzle from the kitchen, all vanished. Every eye locked on the frail old man at table 9, his trembling hands unfolding a small, faded metal case. Dust shimmered in the golden afternoon light as he lifted the lid, revealing something that seemed to hold the weight of time itself. Inside lay a tarnished silver star, its edges worn, its shine dulled by years, but its meaning unbroken. Beneath it, a small photograph rested gently against the velvet lining. A younger Arthur stood proudly in a dirt-stained uniform, arm around another soldier, one who looked unmistakably like a young Harrison Cole. The realization rippled through the room like a slow-moving wave. Gasps, murmurs, silence. Again, but it was Harrison's face that told the story. The proud owner's confident grin faded. replaced by something hollow. His hands dropped to his sides as the color drained from his cheeks. He stared at the photograph as if seeing a ghost. Arthur's voice, though soft, carried across the diner like the echo of a distant drum. "That man beside me was your father, Harrison Cole Sr. He was just a kid when the firefight started. We were surrounded, outnumbered. I pulled him out after he was hit. He never forgot. He said if I ever walked into his door, I'd never pay for a meal again." Every head turned toward Harrison, whose lips parted, but no words came. He stumbled a step back, eyes wet, staring at the face of the man he'd just mocked minutes ago. The investors seated nearby looked down in discomfort. No one dared to speak. Arthur closed the metal case and placed it on the table with quiet finality. "He was a good man," he said softly. "Brave." He spoke of his son often, said he hoped you'd grow up to lead with heart, not with fear. The words landed like a knife. Harrison's chest rose and fell unevenly, his breath shallow. Memories flooded him, his father's framed medal in their home office, his words about humility that Harrison had dismissed as old-fashioned. The realization struck: this wasn't just any veteran. This man had once carried his father through fire, but what happened next would shock everyone watching. The proud, polished restaurant owner, who only minutes ago had mocked an old soldier, slowly dropped to his knees before him. His voice cracked as he whispered, I didn't know. Sir, I didn't know." Arthur looked down at him, emotion flickering behind tired eyes. The diner watched as this moment, raw and human, unfolded under the golden sunlight streaming through the glass. The mighty had fallen, not by force, but by truth. Eli, the young waiter, stood frozen nearby, his hands trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. The air seemed to vibrate with emotion. Harrison's words came out broken. "You saved my father's life. And I just—" Arthur reached out, his hand shaking, but steady enough to rest on Harrison's shoulder. His tone was calm, gentle, and filled with quiet dignity. "Kindness," he said, "is the only debt worth repaying." A tear rolled down Harrison's cheek. Around them, the diners began to rise, some clapping softly, others simply bowing their heads. Harrison promised then and there that every veteran who ever walked into his diner would eat free. It wasn't out of guilt, but out of gratitude. Days later, the Silver Fork Diner would hang a small plaque near the entrance, in honor of Captain Arthur Bennett, whose courage fed not only bodies, but hearts. As the sun dipped low and bathed the diner in amber glow, Arthur stepped outside, metal case in hand. The last light of day caught the silver star, making it shimmer faintly, like a promise that dignity, once earned, never fades. But deep inside Harrison's eyes, one question lingered, one that would change his life forever.